Welcome back. Lincoln currency. You hold in your hand the most everyday piece of American metalage, small, coppery, warm from circulation, and yet even the most ordinary penny can be the doorway into a swath of history, art, manufacturing, and sometimes surprising value. This is a story about the 1992 1-cent coin, the little Lincoln cent that passed through pockets and purses, jukeboxes and tips jars, and which, when inspected closely, reveals a lineage stretching back more than a century. We'll unpack what the 1992 cent is made of, how heavy it is, what its symbols mean, who designed it, the minting process that produced millions of them, what collectors look for, why some pennies can be worth a lot more than face value, and finally why the wild headline number you might have seen, $420 million for a single penny, is almost certainly a misunderstanding, a myth, or a fictional exaggeration. Stay with me. The ordinary often hides the extraordinary. Start with the basic facts a collector learns first. The modern Lincoln cent's physical specifications. The 1992 Lincoln cent belongs to the long-running Lincoln series that began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1992 the cent used the post-1982 copper-plated zinc composition, meaning the coin is a thin layer of copper plated over a zinc core. That change, implemented in 1982, dramatically reduced the weight and the cost of producing pennies compared with the older 95% copper composition used for most of the 20th century. The diameter is the familiar 19.05 millimeters, essentially the size Americans recognize as a penny, and the mass for a post-1982 cent is 2.5 grams. The edge is plain, no reading, no serrations, smooth. These measurements are part of the coin's identity and they dictate how the coin behaves in machines, how it sounds when flipped, and how it fits into display slabs and albums. Look at the obverse and you see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, turned slightly to the right. That portrait was created by Victor David Brenner and first appeared in 1909. Brenner's likeness replaced the previous classical allegorical designs on U.S. coinage and was revolutionary in using a real historical figure, Lincoln, as the subject of a long-running circulating coin. The obverse carries the inscriptions that have become almost ritual. In God we trust. Above the portrait, Liberty, to the left, and the date, the year 1992, on the right. On coins from the Denver Mint you'll also see a small D mint mark just below the year. Philadelphia cents of 1992 were struck without a mint mark. That placement and those words are small, but they carry legal, cultural, and manufacturing information. The mint mark tells you where the coin was struck. The motto and the word liberty speak to national values the coin was intended to reflect, and the portrait connects the present to the past. Flip the coin and you'll be greeted by the Lincoln Memorial, the reverse design that graced the back of the cent from 1959 through 2008. This was designed by Frank Gasparo. If you peer in close enough, at high magnification, you can actually see a tiny representation of the seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a detail that delights collectors and the curious alike. Around the rim on the reverse are the words, United States of America, and nearer the base, the familiar, E pluribus unum. Dominating the center is the denomination spelled out in improbable grandeur for such a tiny coin. 1 cent. That combination of architecture, iconography, and lettering ties the coin to American civic ideals and to the memorial itself, a neoclassical building in Washington, D.C., dedicated to the memory of Lincoln, and it turned the everyday penny into a small portable monument. Beyond the imagery live the technicalities of manufacture. The core zinc blanks used for 1992 cents were produced in massive sheets, punched into disc-shaped planchets, cleaned, annealed, and then copper-plated. The copper plating is very thin, just enough to give the penny its red-bronze appearance at first, though the zinc core can show through after wear or when the copper is stripped. The dies used to strike coins are engraved with the positive versions of the design and then hardened. Each strike impresses the design into the planchet, flows metal into the fine details, and produces the finished coin. Under high magnification, a newly struck coin shows crispness, tiny details around Lincoln's hair, the serifed edges of letters, the lines of the memorial columns. Over time, as a penny circulates, those edges soften from wear, collectors prize pieces where those fine details remain sharp. Now, let's talk about how common or rare a 1992 penny is. In general, modern pennies like the 1992 cent are extremely common. Hundreds of millions, in many years billions, of those little discs were struck for circulation between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. That sheer abundance is why most 1992 pennies you find in a pocket or at the bottom of a cup are worth exactly 1 cent. But coin collecting is about nuance, condition, mint errors, and tiny die differences can create scarce varieties. A coin in uncirculated, mint state condition, never used in commerce, full of original luster, free from contact marks, can be worth several times face value to a collector, especially when graded by a professional service and slabbed. An MS-65, mint state 65, or higher example in the right circumstances will command premiums. Even so, the premiums for a modern date like 1992 are modest compared to the skyscraping auction prices in the rare coin world. Errors and varieties are where things get interesting. Some coins escape the factory in unusual ways: double strikes, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, improper alloy mixes, and die doubling are a few examples. These anomalies can be eye-catching and, in some cases, rare enough to be valuable. Collectors prize error coins both for their rarity and for the story they tell about the minting process. A dramatic broad strike or a large off-center strike with much of the design missing can be worth tens or even hundreds of dollars if it's dramatic and authenticated. Subtler errors are worth much less. There are also die varieties, tiny differences in lettering, numerals, or the spacing of the letters, that specialists catalog and collect. The world of Lincoln cent varieties is deep and full of catalog numbers. Specialist collectors often track dozens or hundreds of micro-variations across a single decade. We must also talk about grading because it's the gatekeeper between face value coins and coins that have investment-grade prices. Grading is the practice of assigning a numeric grade to a coin based on its condition. That grade reflects the amount of wear, the strike quality, luster, contact marks, and other factors. Professional grading services, the slab companies, encapsulate coins in plastic holders with a label stating the grade. A graded coin is far easier to sell for a premium because the buyer trusts the independent grade. That premium can be modest for a 1992 cent. An MS-67 graded 1992 penny might fetch a few $100s from a specialist, MS-65 maybe tens of dollars, while raw uncirculated pieces and circulated pieces hover much closer to face value. Again, caveat: exact price points fluctuate with market demand, the economy, and collector trends, and those numbers can and do change. Point 1: critical, frequently asked question is this: is there any 1992 penny worth stupendous sums like $420 million? The short, firm answer is no. Such a number for a 1992 cent is practically impossible and not grounded in numismatic reality. Extremely rare coins, especially unique early American pieces, have sold for millions, and a few record-setting sales for ancient or very rare pattern coins or unique rarities can reach the low tens of millions. But a modern mass-produced Lincoln cent from 1992 simply cannot achieve anything close to hundreds of millions in a legitimate market. Reasons are straightforward: supply and demand, documented provenance, and collector interest. For a coin to reach anywhere near that kind of astronomical sum, it would need to be unique, historically pivotal, and have airtight provenance, and no 1992 cent meets that threshold. If you've seen headlines claiming $420 million for a 1992 penny, those are almost certainly bogus, a misinterpretation, or a deliberate clickbait claim. Responsible collecting and research always demands skepticism. Ask for auction records, authenticated provenance, and independent grading before you accept outrageous price assertions. So what should you, the viewer, do with the handful of 1992 cents that might be rattling in your change dish? First, don't panic or assume immediate riches. But do take a closer look. Inspect the coin under a bright light and a loupe or magnifying glass. Look for mint marks, AD for Denver, none for Philadelphia. Examine the date for die breaks, repunch dates, or any doubling. Check the rim and the fields for off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or broad strikes. Look at the reverse for any anomalies in the memorial or the tiny statue of Lincoln. If you find something that looks odd, photograph it in high resolution from multiple angles. If it looks dramatically error-based, a big off-center strike or a clipped planchet taking away major portions of the design, that's potentially a coin to have authenticated. Finally, understand that the true joy for most collectors isn't instant fortune, it's the detective work, tracing the die variety, learning which dies were used at which mint, understanding how circulation and storage impacted the coin, and connecting the object to the story of American coinage. Pennies tell stories of industrial advances in the plating of copper over zinc, of evolving national memory expressed through Lincoln's portrait, and of the modern minting apparatus that can produce billions of essentially identical objects, most of which return to dust, but a few of which survive unscathed and become witnesses to their own era. When you trace the journey of the 1992 Lincoln cent from concept to the jangling change in your hand, the first stop after the design is the production scale, and that scale in 1992 was staggering. At the Philadelphia Mint, production numbers were in the hundreds of millions. The Denver Mint output was similarly massive, each striking presses running at blistering speeds, producing coins at a rate of multiple strikes per second. In total, across both mints, the mintage for the 1992 penny approached 8 billion pieces. Imagine that, 8 billion nearly identical little discs, each weighing just 2.5 grams, each carrying the same portrait of Lincoln and the same Lincoln memorial on the reverse, yet each physically unique if you look closely enough under magnification. That uniqueness is what gives numismatics its investigative thrill. In a sea of mass production, the tiniest divergence becomes noteworthy. Philadelphia's coins in 1992 bore no mint mark, a tradition for that mint's circulating coins until later years. Denver's coins carried the small D mint mark, easily visible beneath the ear. While most collectors view both issues as equally common, in high-end condition the grading census sometimes reveals subtle differences in how many survive at the very top of the scale. Coins from one mint may show slightly better strikes or fewer contact marks, leading grading services to assign higher populations in those grades. This is why serious registry set collectors chase particular mints for their top-graded examples. They're competing in a numbers game where population reports matter almost as much as the coin's beauty itself. Among these billions of 1992 cents, there are whispers of notable varieties, the most famous of which is the so-called close AM, reverse. This variety, which properly belongs to the 1992 D close AM and the 1992 close AM struck at Philadelphia, shows the letters A and M in America on the reverse nearly touching, a spacing used on proof coin dies rather than business strike dies. The standard circulation strike for 1992 has a distinct gap between the A and M, with the bottoms of the letters more widely separated. Finding a genuine 1992 close AM in circulation is a rare event. These pieces were struck with a proof reverse die by accident and entered general circulation. Only a handful of authentic examples have been certified by major grading services, and those command substantial premiums, often thousands of dollars even in circulated grades, and far more if found in pristine mint state. The Denver minted 1992 D close AM is considered even scarcer than the Philadelphia version, and specialists prize them for filling a rare slot in the Lincoln cent variety timeline. Era coins from 1992 also provide fertile hunting ground. Off-center strikes are the most visually dramatic. The more of the design that's missing, and the more the date and mint mark remain visible, the more collectors want it. A 1992 penny struck 50% off-center with a clear date can be worth many multiples of face value. Double strikes, where the coin is struck twice with a shift between blows, produce ghost images and are another sought-after type. Clipped planchets, where a crescent of the metal is missing from the edge because the blank was punched from the sheet overlapping an already punched hole, are valued for their tangible look into the manufacturing process. There are also rarer and less understood errors like die caps, brockages, or coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Imagine a 1992 Lincoln cent struck on a dime's copper-nickel planchet, lighter and silvery in color, yet bearing Lincoln's image. That's the sort of anomaly that causes a stir in auctions. When we speak of market value for 1992 cents, we must ground ourselves in reality. The overwhelming majority are worth 1 cent in circulation. Uncirculated rolls from bank stock might bring a small premium if bright and fully red in color, perhaps a few dollars per roll to the right buyer. Certified mint state examples in MS-65 or MS-66 might trade for between $5 and $30 depending on grade, luster, and eye appeal. At MS-67 or higher, the supply tightens considerably, and prices can rise into the low hundreds, though such pieces are the exception, not the rule. The closed AM varieties break this mold entirely, with even low-grade examples starting in the hundreds and rising into 5 figures for superb mint state survivors. Error coins, as mentioned, have a wide value range depending on type and visual impact. It's here that the lure of the mythical $420 million valuation enters the conversation. The truth is, there are no verifiable public sales of any 1992 penny for even 1,000th of that sum. The highest public auction prices for 1992 cents are for rare varieties like the closed AM or exceptional condition pieces, and those still top out in the thousands or low tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of millions. The $420 million figure likely originates from viral misinformation, clickbait articles, or social media exaggerations designed to capture attention. In numismatics, as in any collectible market, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Without certified grading, documented provenance, and a legitimate public or private sale, such astronomical numbers are simply fantasies. For those genuinely interested in assessing a 1992 penny's potential, the process starts with identification. Begin with the basics: date, mint mark, and general appearance. Under magnification, check the AM in America for spacing. Inspect for any doubling in the date or lettering. Look for off-center designs or missing sections of the rim. If the coin appears to have unusual coloration or weight, weigh it precisely to the hundredth of a gram and compare to the expected 2.50 grams. A significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet strike. Photographs under consistent, diffuse lighting will help capture the coin's true look. Should the coin appear to be a rare variety or a major mint error, submitting it to a respected grading service like PCGS or NGC will both authenticate it and assign a grade, which in turn anchors its market value. The journey of a coin through the grading process is itself fascinating. Once submitted, the coin is evaluated by multiple graders, each independently assessing its strike quality, luster, surface preservation, and any signs of cleaning or damage. The grade is assigned on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a theoretically perfect coin under 5 times magnification. Coins with red copper coloration receive an RD designation, while those with brown toning receive BN, and those in between receive RB for red-brown. For Lincoln cents, maintaining full red luster decades after minting is uncommon, so RD examples command premiums. After grading, the coin is sonically sealed in a tamper-evident holder with its grade and any variety attribution printed on the label. For collectors chasing the 1992 date, goals vary. Some seek a high-grade example for a date and mint set. Others hunt the elusive closed AM variety for completion of a variety set. Error specialists might focus on assembling a spectrum of striking anomalies from that year. Each path offers its own rewards, from the aesthetic pleasure of pristine, gleaming copper to the intellectual satisfaction of cataloging and understanding the subtle differences born of the minting process. Beyond the marketplace, the 1992 penny occupies a place in a longer narrative arc. It sits midway between the coinage of the 20th century and the redesign era of the 21st, a product of an economy that was still largely cash-driven but beginning to digitize. Its obverse portrait remained unchanged from Brenner's 1909 debut, while its reverse still bore Gasparo's memorial design introduced in 1959. It was the coin of vending machines, parking meters, and candy store counters, as ubiquitous in a child's pocket as in a banker's drawer. The vast mintage numbers reflect a time when the penny still served a daily transactional purpose, before debates about its elimination gained real political traction. And yet, in that ocean of copper-plated zinc, the stories of individual coins diverge wildly. One may have spent its life traveling the Midwest in loose change, slowly wearing smooth before ending up in a coin jar. Another might have sat untouched in a mint-sealed roll, its surfaces still blazing with original mint luster. A third could have been struck slightly off-center, caught the eye of a bank teller, and been set aside as a curiosity. A fourth might have been born of a rare die pairing that produced the closed AM variety, overlooked for years until an eagle-eyed collector spotted the tight spacing and sent it for authentication. It's in these narratives that the humble 1992 penny transcends its tiny denomination and becomes a tangible artifact of industrial process, artistic intent, and human chance. When you approach a 1992 penny as a potential treasure hunt target, the process of examination can be as methodical as any laboratory investigation. The first step is always light and magnification. A bright desk lamp with a cool white bulb set at an angle will bring out the relief of the coin's surface, casting tiny shadows in the crevices of lettering and design that help reveal doubling, extra metal, or worn areas. A jeweler's loupe with at least 10 times magnification is essential, though many dedicated collectors use stereo microscopes to examine their coins. Place the coin on a soft pad to avoid scratching, and rotate it slowly under the light. Start with the obverse. Check Lincoln's date for thickness, distortions, or separation lines within the numerals, which could signal machine doubling or genuine doubled dies. Examine the word Liberty and the motto I in God We Trust for similar signs. A doubled die is created when the working die itself was impressed twice by the hub out of alignment, meaning every coin struck from that die will have the same doubling pattern. This is far rarer and more valuable than the common form of mechanical doubling caused by die bounce. Shift your attention to the mint mark area. For 1992 decents, the mint mark was still being punched into dies by hand at this time, which means repunched mint marks or tilted mint marks are possible. A repunched mint mark, where the D appears doubled or shows traces of its previous punch, can add modest collector value, especially if the repunching is bold. Tilted mint marks or mint marks with extra metal around the edges can also be points of interest for variety specialists. Then move to the reverse and focus on the word America. Here's where the close AM diagnostic comes in. In the standard wide AM reverse for 1992, the bottoms of the A and M have a visible space between them, enough that you can see background metal all the way between the serifs. In the close AM reverse, the bottoms of the A and M nearly touch, with only a hairline separation, and the inner serifs are nearly flush. A secondary diagnostic for this proof reverse is the position of the designer's initials FG, located to the right of the memorial. On the close AM reverse, the G in FG is farther from the base of the memorial than on the wide AM reverse. Once you know what to look for, the difference is unmistakable. A proper close AM find in 1992 or 1992D is a numismatic headline moment because of the variety's rarity. Certified population reports from major grading services show these in the low dozens at most. Auction results for these varieties have ranged widely depending on grade. A circulated example might bring between $2,000 and $5,000, while mint state examples can command 5 figures. One verified high-grade 1992D close AM sold for over $20,000 at auction, illustrating the potent combination of rarity, demand, and the competitive spirit among variety collectors. This is a far cry from the mythic hundreds of millions, but still a staggering multiplier over face value. Beyond close AM, there are other subtle varieties, such as double dies on the obverse or reverse that have been catalogued for the 1992 issue. Some are minor and bring small premiums. Others, if strong and visible to the naked eye, can be worth substantial sums to specialists. To confirm any suspected variety, comparing your coin to images and descriptions in trusted reference works like the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties or online variety catalogs is critical. High-quality photographs and die markers, tiny nicks or lines in specific locations that match a known die, help in authentication. Error coin auction prices for 1992 also show an instructive pattern. A dramatic off-center strike where half the design is missing and the date is complete can bring $100 or more. Double strikes that are bold and eye-catching can surpass that. Wrong planchet strikes, especially if the coin is struck on a planchet from a different denomination and metal, can leap into the hundreds or even thousands depending on the combination and rarity. Each error tells a story about what happened in the minting room, whether it was a blank from the wrong bin fed into the press or a die that struck twice because the coin failed to eject properly after the first strike. In the broader arc of Lincoln cent collecting, the 1992 penny sits in a sweet spot for modern variety hunters. It is modern enough that billions exist and can still be found in circulation, yet old enough that high-grade survivors are less common, and major varieties are genuinely rare. Collectors building complete sets of Lincoln cents from 1909 to the present will need a 1992 from each mint, and variety collectors will chase the close AM versions. Some hobbyists even assemble sets of Lincoln cents showing each significant mint era they can find for that year, off-centers, clips, broad strikes, creating a miniature time capsule of minting anomalies. One of the quiet joys of the Lincoln cent series is its continuity. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln has endured with only minor modifications to the hubbing over decades, making each year's coin instantly recognizable while still offering an endless variety of subtle differences. The reverse designs, too, have become visual landmarks in the series' history. The 1992 coin still carried Frank Gasparo's Memorial reverse, which itself was introduced in 1959 to mark the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth. This reverse would remain until 2008, making the 1992 penny part of the long memorial era in which every Lincoln cent doubled as a miniature architectural tribute. Understanding the cultural backdrop of 1992 adds another layer to the coin's story. This was a year before the World Wide Web became widely accessible, when most commerce was still conducted in person, and coins were the everyday lubricant of small transactions. A penny still had purchasing power for single candies, payphones still accepted coins, and vending machines still required exact change. For many, the 1992 penny passed unnoticed through thousands of hands, its surfaces slowly losing their original luster. Yet some were set aside in jars, others sealed in mint rolls, and a rare few never saw circulation at all, preserved in brilliant red condition that today's collectors covet. This juxtaposition between ubiquity and rarity is at the heart of why the 1992 penny can be both worthless in most cases and surprisingly valuable in others. It is not the date alone that matters, but the interplay of condition, variety, and era status. A common, worn 1992 cent may not even be accepted by a coin dealer, it is simply spendable change. But a pristine close AM variety or dramatic mint era can change hands for thousands of dollars in a formal auction setting. This is why seasoned collectors and even casual treasure hunters keep a mental checklist of what to look for in certain dates. As we move forward in the script, the next step will be to show exactly how coins like the 1992 penny are cataloged in auction houses, the terminology used in lot descriptions, and the way realized prices are influenced by timing, collector competition, and even the quality of the coin's photographs. We'll also explore how the Lincoln cent market has evolved over the decades, why certain years surge in popularity, and how social media and viral posts have created both renewed interest and rampant misinformation about values. Picture this: a small, coppery disc rests on a velvet-lined tray under the bright, neutral lighting of a professional auction house preview. It's not in a casual coin jar anymore. It's encased in a crystal-clear slab of hard plastic, the label at the top crisp with block lettering, 1992 D1C, Close AM, MS66RD, authenticated and graded by one of the industry's top services. This little coin, identical in basic appearance to the billions of other 1992 pennies in the world, now sits at the center of a carefully staged display. The catalog description on the printed sheet beside it reads like a resume: variety attribution confirmed, population report numbers cited, luster described as full blazing red with satiny fields, strike quality noted as exceptional for the issue. The provenance line is brief but powerful. From the Oak Ridge collection. To the trained eye, every word of that description carries weight. The preview floor hums with quiet conversations. Collectors and dealers move between cases, some with loops pressed to their eyes, others photographing slabs for later study. A few stop in front of this 1992 D, leaning in to confirm the tight spacing of the A&M, to check for any carbon spots or ticks in the fields that might affect eye appeal. One or two murmur about the rarity of this variety in such a high grade, knowing that the census of certified examples above MS66RD is vanishingly small. The coin's consignor, somewhere nearby, watches with measured detachment, pretending not to care while noting each serious buyer who pauses at the case. When the auction begins, the pace is brisk at first. Early lots of common date Morgans and World coins sell to floor bidders and absentee clients. Then, with barely a pause, the auctioneer announces the lot number for the 1992 D Close AM. The opening bid flashes on the screen, $5,000, already above what most people would think of as possible for a penny. A hand goes up in the second row. Another bidder counters from the back. The increments climb, 6,000, 657. The auctioneer's rhythm is steady, his voice modulating with each call. Online bidders join in, their offers popping up on the screen from usernames halfway across the country. At $10,000, the pace slows. Two bidders remain locked in. One sits calmly, occasionally raising a numbered paddle with a faint smile. The other, online, clicks in measured response. The auctioneer calls 11,000. The floor bidder nods. 11,500 from the online bidder. 12 from the floor. Each bid here is more than 400 times the coin's face value. The air is taut. The people in the room feel the energy of money and rarity intersecting. The auctioneer looks between the floor and the screen, sensing the moment is nearing its peak. 12,500 online. The floor bidder hesitates, then lifts the paddle for 13,000. The auctioneer repeats the number, glances at the screen. No further advance. Fair warning, he calls. A final pause. The gavel comes down with a sharp report. Sold. $13,000 for a 1-cent coin minted in 1992. Outside of that room, the story takes on a life of its own. Dealers and collectors discuss the sale in online forums, comparing it to past results. Some note that the price was strong for the grade but in line with the variety's scarcity. Others speculate that the winning bidder was filling a registry slot and willing to stretch to secure the coin. The consignor is quietly pleased. After seller's fees, the payout is still a dramatic return compared to the original face value. And for the winning bidder, the slabbed 1992 D Close AM now becomes part of a curated collection, perhaps displayed in a custom cabinet or insured in a vault, a trophy in a niche pursuit that blends historical preservation with the adrenaline of competition. This process, from raw coin to certified rarity to auction headline, is the pathway that underpins the true market for coins like the 1992 penny. It is not a realm of fantastical billions. It is a structured ecosystem of authentication, grading, cataloging, marketing, and competitive bidding. Every sale is shaped by timing, whether the right buyers are in the room, whether the market mood is optimistic or cautious, whether other examples have recently traded. Even the quality of the photographs in the catalog can affect the final hammer price. Coins with sharp, true color images tend to draw more pre-auction interest and higher bids. Meanwhile, away from the glare of the auction room, the grassroots search continues. People comb through rolls from the bank, scrutinize pocket change, and sift inherited jars of coins. The odds are long. Billions of standard wide AMs exist for every close AM, but the appeal lies in the chance. The thrill of discovery is not diminished by the fact that most searches yield nothing of high value. In a way, that makes the rare find even sweeter. The searcher who plucks a genuine close AM from a pile of ordinary 1992 cents can hold it up to the light and know they've rescued a numismatic needle from a haystack the size of a continent. The Lincoln Cent series fosters this kind of passion partly because it is so accessible. Anyone can participate. The barrier to entry is literally a single penny. From there, the journey can lead as far as the collector wishes to go, into the study of die varieties, the investment in high-grade certified pieces, the camaraderie of coin clubs and online communities, even the drama of live auctions. The 1992 penny, especially in its rarest forms, becomes a thread connecting everyday life to the intricate world of numismatics, where history, artistry, and market forces converge in an object barely larger than a button. The journey of the 1992 penny is not just about metal, mint marks, and auction hammers. It is also about the strange ecosystem of stories that spring up around it. In recent years, the internet has become a fertile ground for tales of impossible riches hidden in ordinary change. A blurry photograph of a coin, paired with an outrageous headline, "This penny is worth $420 million," spreads through social media feeds faster than any fact check can keep up. The psychology is simple. It is a seductive fantasy that something so mundane could transform into unimaginable wealth overnight. For many people scrolling through on their phones, it's easier to share the story than to question it. And so the myth grows, untethered from reality, leaving in its wake a trail of hopeful searchers and disappointed skeptics. In the real numismatic market, there are no secret billion-dollar pennies waiting quietly in someone's drawer. Prices, even for the rarest modern varieties, are set by documented transactions between informed buyers and sellers. These transactions happen in public auctions, reputable dealer sales, or authenticated private deals. Every coin's price is shaped by condition, rarity, demand, and authenticity, not by viral claims. When a 1992 close AM sells for $10,000 or $20,000, it does so with a paper trail, graded slab, auction listing, lot description, and a final hammer price recorded for anyone to see. There's no mystery jackpot, no shadowy billionaire bidding on a whim. The value is built from the ground up, through the established and transparent practices of the numismatic world. Yet misinformation has a way of blending with genuine facts, making it trickier for newcomers to separate truth from hype. A real close AM sale for thousands becomes the seed for a wildly inflated number, repeated enough times to take on a life of its own. Online videos and posts sometimes blur the distinction between rare and valuable, and common and worthless, leaving viewers unsure of what to believe. Some creators knowingly lean into exaggeration to attract clicks, while others repeat what they've heard without understanding the underlying market reality. The result is a swirl of half-truths and fiction in which the actual beauty and intrigue of coins can get lost. This is where education becomes powerful. For the curious viewer holding a 1992 penny, the real thrill should be in learning how to identify a close AM, in recognizing a doubled die, in understanding why an MS-67 red example is scarcer than one in lower grade. The value is not just in the price tag, but in the skill of knowing what you have and why it matters. It's like learning to read a secret code that's been hiding in plain sight on millions of coins. That knowledge empowers you to spot real opportunities and avoid false promises. Seasoned collectors often share their own cautionary tales. They tell of coins bought in excitement only to be revealed as altered or misattributed, of errors that turned out to be post-mint damage from a vise or a drill. They've seen newcomers pay hundreds for coins worth pennies because of a misleading online listing. These stories, while sometimes discouraging, also form the shared folklore of the hobby, a reminder that patience and skepticism are part of the collector's toolkit. The best defense against disappointment is the slow accumulation of knowledge, books, trusted online resources, forums where experts freely give their time to educate others. The irony is that the truth about the 1992 penny is already compelling without embellishment. A coin with billions of common examples still hides a variety so rare that only a few dozen have surfaced, each one a testament to the quirks of minting and the thrill of chance discovery. That's not a fantasy. That's a reality you can hold in your hand if luck and sharp eyes align. In the time it takes to scroll past a misleading post, you could instead be learning how to check the AM spacing or weigh a coin to detect a wrong planch at strike.by. By the time a viewer reaches this point in the story, they've traveled from the coin's physical details to the drama of the auction room, from the hard numbers of mintages to the soft currents of online rumor. They've seen how the market works and how myths grow. They've learned that the difference between a 1-cent coin and a 5-figure collectible is often measured in millimeters of spacing or degrees of die alignment. And they've hopefully caught the bug, not the fever of easy riches, but the quieter, more enduring excitement of the hunt, the knowledge that each coin has the potential to be a story waiting to be told. The final note to strike is one of invitation. Anyone can start looking. The next 1992 close AM could be sitting unnoticed in a roll of bank-wrapped cents. It could be in a coffee can in someone's garage. It could be the coin you just got in change for your morning coffee. All it takes is the habit of looking closer, of turning the coin in your fingers and letting your eyes seek the subtle details. In a world where so much feels disposable, that small act of attention transforms an object of everyday commerce into a link between you and a history over a century in the making. That is the real treasure. The 1992 penny does not exist in isolation. It's a chapter in one of the longest-running stories in American coinage. To understand its place, you have to go back to 1909, a year chosen to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was a bold move at the time. No U.S. coin in regular circulation had ever featured a real historical figure. Before that, liberty in various allegorical forms had dominated the nation's coinage. The shift to an actual portrait was a cultural statement, placing Lincoln's face into the daily lives of millions and marking a break from a century of symbolic representation. The man behind the design was Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian-born engraver whose initials, VDB, were prominently placed at the bottom of the reverse in the first year. The 1909 VDB cents were struck in huge numbers, but the visibility of his initials sparked controversy, with critics claiming they were too large and self-promoting. By mid-year, the initials were removed, creating two main varieties of the 1909 cent, VDB and non-VDB, that collectors still chase today. Those earliest Lincoln cents were 95% copper, heavier at 3.11 grams, and the design was crisp and finely detailed, with wheat ears flanking the reverse inscriptions. From 1909 to 1958, the reverse remained the wheat ears design, a simple agricultural motif symbolizing abundance and national growth. The obverse stayed faithful to Brenner's portrait, though subtle changes to the master hubs over the years sharpened or softened details in Lincoln's hair and facial lines. This continuity created a steady collecting series, each year and mint mark offering a new target for hobbyists. The next major shift came in 1959, marking the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The wheat reverse was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo, itself a symbol of modernity at the time. It was detailed enough that, with magnification, you could see Lincoln's seated statue inside the memorial, making the Lincoln cent the only U.S. coin to depict the same person on both sides. This reverse ran for nearly 5 decades, becoming as familiar to generations as the wheat ears had been before. The 1992 penny sits firmly within this memorial era, using dies and minting methods that had been refined over decades to handle the massive production demands of the late 20th century. The composition change in 1982 marked another turning point. Rising copper prices had made the cent's metal worth more than its face value, prompting the mint to switch to copper-plated zinc planchets. The new cents weighed 2.5 grams instead of 3.11, and while visually similar when new, they aged differently. Copper cents from before 1982 tend to retain their color or develop rich brown patina. Zinc-core cents are more prone to spotting, streaking, and corrosion if the copper plating is breached. This is the composition of the 1992 cent, a thin copper skin over a core of zinc, a modern cost-saving measure invisible to the casual observer. The 1992 cent also represents the era before the digital age truly transformed coin production. Dies were still engraved with a mix of manual and early computer-aided techniques, and mint marks were still applied by hand to working dies. This manual step is what made varieties like repunched mint marks possible, and it's a link to the earlier traditions of die preparation. Within just a few years, mint mark application would become fully automated, eliminating certain types of varieties from modern coinage altogether. After 2008, the Lincoln Memorial reverse gave way to a one-year 4-design series in 2009 marking the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent. Each reverse depicted a different stage of Lincoln's life: birth and early childhood in Kentucky, formative years in Indiana, professional life in Illinois, and presidency in Washington, D.C. In 2010, the reverse changed again, this time to the Union Shield design by Lindo Bass, symbolizing Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a single entity. Seen against this backdrop, the 1992 penny is both ordinary and transitional. Ordinary in that billions were made, transitional in that it sits on the threshold of changes to mint mark application and within a decade of major design shifts. It belongs to the last generation of Lincoln cents where rare varieties like the close AM could slip through by accident, where human oversight and die selection created an unintentional scarcity. Collectors of the full Lincoln cent series often treat it as a timeline of American history in miniature. The early wheat cents tell of an agrarian America, the memorial cents of a nation honoring its civic architecture, the bicentennial reverses of a culture revisiting its own roots, and the Union shield of a country looking toward unity in a new century. The metals themselves, copper, then copper-plated zinc, mirror economic realities and the practicalities of mass production. The 1992 cent, when placed in a complete album, stands out not for a grand design change, but for the quiet drama of its rare variety and the fact that it carries all the accumulated weight of its predecessors in the series. For the viewer of your video, seeing this lineage turns a single coin into part of a 116-year continuum. The penny in your hand, even if it's just an ordinary 1992 wide AM, is the product of design decisions, economic pressures, technological capabilities, and historical commemorations spanning more than a century. And if, by some twist of fortune, it turns out to be a close AM or a dramatic mint error, it becomes a tangible reminder that even in the most familiar corners of our daily lives, there are still discoveries waiting to be made. That day, Alex was just killing time, idly sorting through the pile. Quarters for the laundry jar, dimes into a little tin, nickels in a coffee mug, and pennies. Well, pennies were everywhere. Most were dull brown, some with decades of wear, a few with that bright copper shine of a coin barely touched. He wasn't a serious collector, not yet, but he had watched enough videos and read enough articles to know that sometimes, the smallest detail made all the difference. Halfway through the pile, Alex picked up a penny without really looking at the date. It felt lighter than he expected, not noticeably so to someone without experience, but he had read that post-1982 cents were zinc with a copper coating. He held it between his fingers and gave it a tiny flick against another penny. The ring was duller than the solid copper pre-1982 coins. He smiled to himself, confirmation of the composition, nothing more. Then, for no reason he could explain, he glanced at the date. 1992. He froze. A faint memory sparked, something about a close AM variety from that year. He leaned closer. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stood in tiny detail. His eyes shifted to the word America, zeroing in on the spacing between the A and the M. In most pennies from that era, the gap was wide enough to slip an imaginary sliver of light between the letters. But here the letters were nearly touching. Alex's pulse quickened. No way, he muttered, his voice barely more than a breath. He reached for the magnifying glass he kept in the drawer, a cheap plastic thing that had come with a kid's science kit years ago. Through its lens, the spacing confirmed itself. The A and M were close enough to match the rare variety he'd seen in online guides. He checked again, tilting the coin under the light, looking for damage or post-mint alteration. None. The details were sharp, the surfaces mostly clean except for a couple of tiny spots. His hands were shaking now, and the rational part of his brain tried to rein in the excitement. It could still be an illusion, a normal wide AM that just looked close because of wear or lighting. He pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically through bookmarked images until he found a side-by-side comparison of the two reverses. There was no denying it. What he held was unmistakably a close AM. He remembered reading that condition was everything. His coin wasn't flawless, but it was far from worn out. It had good luster, no major scratches, and the detail in Lincoln's hair and the memorial columns was clear. In that moment, the kitchen seemed too small, too ordinary for what was happening. He felt like he had stumbled into some secret layer of reality that had been hiding in plain sight his entire life. For the next hour, Alex did what any modern treasure hunter would do. He cross-referenced every reputable source he could find. Numismatic forums, coin variety guides, auction house archives. The more he read, the more the magnitude of the find sank in. Confirmed examples had sold for thousands. Only a tiny number had been authenticated, each one a rare survivor from a subtle minting mix-up. The fact that this coin had ended up in his pocket change, after decades of circulation, felt almost impossible. That night, he couldn't stop looking at it. He set it gently on a folded microfiber cloth, resisting the urge to rub it clean. He knew that even a light cleaning could destroy the surface and reduce its value. Every so often, he'd walk by the table and glance down, just to make sure it was still there, still real. It wasn't the money that kept him glued to it. It was the thought of all the unseen journeys it had taken to arrive here, and the knowledge that he had spotted it when millions of others had let it slip by unnoticed. In the days that followed, Alex arranged to send it to a grading service. The moment he sealed the coin in its protective flip and placed it in the padded envelope, a strange feeling washed over him, not sadness, but a recognition that this object, which had been his for only a short time, was now entering the wider world of collectors, auctions, and historical records. He imagined its next chapter, perhaps in the hands of a passionate numismatist who would treasure it for years, or displayed in a collection where others could marvel at its rarity. Weeks later, the coin came back slabbed and graded, MS-64 red. Not perfect, but spectacular for something pulled from loose change. The auction listing that followed drew eager bids, each one a testament to the coin's scarcity and the hunger of collectors to own a piece of numismatic history. When the final hammer fell, the amount was more than Alex had ever held in a single check. But even as the payment cleared, he realized that the money was not the highlight of the story. The highlight was the moment in his kitchen, the stillness between recognizing the date and confirming the AM spacing. The rush of discovery, the disbelief turning into certainty, the realization that treasures still circulate among us, unnoticed until someone cares enough to look. That moment was his, forever, and no auction result could match it. Somewhere out there, in someone else's pocket or coin jar, another 1992 close AM is waiting. It will sit unnoticed until another pair of curious eyes decides to turn it over, to look closer, to let history whisper its secret. And maybe, just maybe, the next person will be watching this very video when it happens. The thing about a discovery like Alex's is that it doesn't have to be a once-in-a-lifetime accident. Yes, luck plays its part, but the truth is that rare coins are found every year by ordinary people who simply know what to look for. You don't need expensive equipment, and you don't need to be an expert before you start. You just need your own curiosity, a patient eye, and the willingness to slow down for the smallest details. It begins with the simple act of handling your coins differently. Most people treat change as something to be spent or tossed in a drawer without thought, but a collector sees every coin as a potential lead in a treasure hunt. If you decide to search for a 1992 close AM penny, your first step is to separate out every cent dated 1992. You'll want to check both Philadelphia and Denver mint marks, those tiny letters just below the date. The close AM variety is known for the Philadelphia mint, without a mint mark, but it's worth inspecting every single one just in case. Once you have your candidates, you turn them over to the reverse, where the Lincoln Memorial dominates the design. The key is in the word America. In most cents from 1992, the A and the M stand apart, with a small but noticeable gap. In the close AM, the two letters almost touch, their serifs nearly meeting like two fingertips in a painting. The difference is small enough that good lighting is your best friend. Set the coin on a flat surface under a bright desk lamp, or better yet, tilt it under natural sunlight until the lettering stands out in sharp relief. Your naked eye can often spot the difference if you know what you're looking for, but a magnifying glass makes it easier, especially if you're new to variety hunting. Even a simple 5x or 10x loop is enough to bring the AM spacing into clear view. Hold the coin steady, focus your loop, and look not just at the gap but at the shapes of the letters themselves. On a close AM, the bottoms of the A and M are aligned evenly, and the gap, or lack of it, is consistent all the way down. While you have the coin under magnification, it's worth checking the rest of the details. Look at the date and mint mark. Are they sharp or mushy? Is there doubling, where details seem to be stamped twice? Check Lincoln's profile for clarity in his hair and beard, the sharpness of the memorial columns, the tiny statue of Lincoln between the central columns. All of these details contribute to the coin's grade, which in turn affects its value. Condition matters immensely. A 1992 close AM in well-worn circulated condition might fetch a few $100s, but a crisp, uncirculated example can leap into the thousands. To preserve a coin you suspect is rare, handle it only by the edges to avoid adding fingerprints or oils to its surface. Place it in a soft 2x2 cardboard holder or a non-PVC plastic flip until you can have it examined by a reputable dealer or grading service. And remember, the close AM isn't the only variety worth hunting. In 1998, 1999, and 2000, the reverse dies for proof coins were accidentally used on some business strikes, creating close AM cents in those years as well. Earlier cents have their own quirks: double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes, and more. Once your eyes adjust to seeing the details, you'll start spotting unusual features in all sorts of dates. Some people imagine that to find something valuable, you have to go digging through old barns or buying unsearched rolls from antique shops. The truth is, many finds happen right in pocket change. Banks still distribute boxes of cents to customers who request them, and searching through a $25 box, 2,500 pennies, can be both relaxing and thrilling. It's the same feeling as panning for gold, long stretches of routine, punctuated by sudden flashes of excitement when something catches your eye. The first time you find a coin that's not supposed to be in your hand, your world tilts slightly. You begin to realize that the minting process, for all its precision, is still run by humans and machines that can make tiny, fascinating mistakes. Those mistakes slip quietly into the economy, carried in wallets, purses, and pockets until the right person notices. That person could be you, and when you do find one, you'll understand that it's not just the dollar figure that matters. It's the moment when the years of unnoticed details snap into focus, when the thing you've been training your eyes to see suddenly appears. The moment you become part of the story, another link in the chain of discovery that stretches back to the first person who spotted the very first 1992 close AM decades ago. If you start tonight, with the change in your pocket, you might not find anything on your first try, or your second, or your 10th. But one day, when you least expect it, you might tilt a penny under the light, see those two letters nearly touching, and feel the same rush Alex felt in his kitchen. That's the magic of coin hunting. It's part patience, part knowledge, and part pure chance. And for as long as pennies still jingle in our pockets, the possibility will always be there. When you think about it, every coin has a story. Some stories are short and simple, born in the mint, spent at the corner store, worn down by 1,000 exchanges until the date is just a ghost of a number. Others are epic journeys, filled with accidents and anomalies, the improbable twists that turn a mass-produced object into a one-in-a-million treasure. The 1992 close AM is one of those epic stories. It left the mint by mistake, survived the churn of circulation, dodged the melting pot, and ended up in the hands of the rare few who could recognize it for what it truly was. For those who find it, the value is more than money. It's the thrill of the chase, the triumph of patience, the deep satisfaction of knowing you noticed what others overlooked. It's a connection to the engravers, the press operators, the history of the Lincoln cent itself, and to the countless unknown hands that passed it along the way. It is, in a strange and wonderful way, a handshake across time, and maybe that's the greatest lesson this coin has to offer. That in life, as in collecting, the smallest details can change everything. That beauty and rarity are often invisible until you choose to see them. That even the most common-seeming thing can carry a secret worth discovering. And that sometimes, all it takes to uncover something extraordinary is a moment of curiosity, and the courage to look just a little closer. So the next time you hear the clink of change in your palm, remember, you might be holding history. You might be touching something rare enough to rewrite its own destiny, and yours. Somewhere, another 1992 close AM is out there, waiting for the right pair of eyes. Maybe those eyes will be yours. Maybe the next great coin story will begin the moment you decide to look. And when you do, you won't just be searching for pennies. You'll be searching for the magic hidden in the everyday, proof that treasures still live among us, just waiting for the moment we choose to notice.